Hello, Swami. Welcome to Livsenergi.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be speaking with you and meeting with you.
It's been a year since we spoke last time, and that was our first time. So back then, this is Swami Saradananda, and you are the author of several books. Back then, a year ago, we actually launched your book, The Cleansing Power of Yoga. And this time we're speaking because there's another book that you've published that is called The Power of Breath. And that's the one that is coming out in Swedish in just a couple of weeks. Yeah. We are super happy to be launching this book because everybody who's been reading it in the translation process loves it. They think it's so special. So we want to talk to you about that. But I'm figuring maybe first we could go into and talk a little bit about you. Not everyone has seen you before.
Okay.
So Swami, where are you right now?
Well, I'm in London. I live in London. I've lived here for about 30 years, but I'm originally from New York.
New York City?
Yes, uh-huh. Maybe people can hear my accent because I don't seem to have lost it. But I've lived all over the world. I lived in India for quite a while. I lived up in Himalayas and did my own personal yoga practice. I lived in Germany for a few years, and now I'm back in London.
Yeah. And how has this year been for you in London, the last year?
Well, I signed a contract to write a new book about 2 weeks before the first lockdown began, not
Okay.
even knowing we were going to be locked down. And then when the lockdown began, everyone was complaining, and I thought, this is the way I usually live when I'm writing a book. I just stay in my flat, I work, I go out and I get food or essentials, and then I come back and work. So it wasn't that difficult for me.
No.
Yeah. And then, of course, we had a little reprise in July and August.
Yeah.
So I was in Germany teaching at that time. So it hasn't been too bad.
It's funny talking about teaching, Swami. Since the last book we launched, The Cleansing Power of Yoga, I actually heard from several people, and one person that I know and is quite close to me here in Stockholm also. He sees you. He regards you as his teacher. His name is Frederick.
Oh,
Yes. So it's funny that once you just make sure that your books are available in the Swedish market, everybody kind of comes out in the open, and we know more about you from them.
uh-huh.
It's nice.
Yeah, actually, I've been to Stockholm a few times, and I think twice Frederick arranged some workshops for me.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
I'm quite sure actually, and he also offered to help out if we wanted to do any of your practices and stuff like that, which is really nice. Yeah. So you come from the US, and I know from our last conversation that you have a long history with yoga. I mean, much longer than, for example, the Western world kind of thinks that yoga started off by in 20 years ago, but that's not true because you were there much earlier than that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, actually, I started practicing yoga in 1967.
Yeah.
So, and I've been teaching, I think, since 75.
Yeah. I was born 74.
Yeah. Yes, I've been teaching for a long time.
What was yoga back then? How was it viewed in society?
Well, of course, in the 60s, hippies did yoga.
Yeah.
I wasn't a hippie, but I was just looking for some kind of physical exercise. And I just started doing a class, but I think it wasn't mainstream at all. Yoga didn't become mainstream till about 20, as you said, about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I
Before
think you're
that,
right.
who did yoga was a little not strange, but maybe unusual, you can say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when I talk to you about yoga, yoga is something different than for the mass market. For most people, yoga is practice, and it's very dynamic, and it's very physical. But when I talk to you about yoga, it feels like it's more philosophy for you. It's more a lifestyle and more something different. Can you tell us, what is yoga for you?
Well, it's definitely a lifestyle
Yeah.
and it's a spiritual practice. So I consider my lifestyle to be my spiritual practice. And I think, what do people really want out of life? And if we come down to it, we just want to be happy, don't we?
Mhm.
And unless we have peace within ourselves, how can we be happy? So I think yoga is a way of finding inner peace. And that's really the goal of yoga, is to find inner peace and to understand what is your essential nature.
Yeah. And you don't have to do acrobatic positions and postures.
Right. Well, that's one type of yoga. You know, traditionally that would be called hatha yoga. Now, I know nowadays people think hatha yoga is the easy yoga you do in the health club if you don't want to do Ashtanga yoga. But actually, hatha yoga means any practice of yoga that you do, you use your physical body to do. You do asanas.
Yeah.
Right? In the West, if you say, I'm going to do yoga, people assume you're going to be doing some physical exercise. Whereas in India, if you say, I'm going to do yoga, they're more likely to think you're going to chant or meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today we are talking about the breathing part of yoga,
Huh? Yeah.
the prana. Yeah. The funny thing is, our publishing house is a book club and a publishing house, and the name is Livsenergi. And Livsenergi is translated to English as life energy,
Uh-huh.
which is in the breathing power, the power breath, prana, right?
Yeah. Well, prana is the subtle energy that's often translated into English as life force or vital energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun, I think. So, what is breath for you?
Um, well, I mean, breath is life, isn't it? It's one thing that if you stopped for doing for more than 5 minutes, you wouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
And I think it's strange that when people say, I'm going to get myself together, I'm going to start exercising and eating a healthy diet, but yet you can live for about a normal healthy person can live for about 6 weeks without eating, but yet we worry about it. You see, but yet something that we can't live without for more than 5 minutes, we don't worry about. We don't worry about doing it properly. And I think many people in modern society don't breathe properly. We breathe with the top third of our lungs, which increases stress, and stress is what we all worry about. Everyone is stressed out nowadays. But yet, when you're stressed and someone says to you, okay, relax, just take a deep breath. But if you can't take a deep breath when you're relaxed, if you tense when you're relaxed, how are you going to do it when there's a lot of stress? So I think it's a very important thing for modern people.
How do you know? Because actually, I have a kind of breathing issue right now. That for 4 months actually I've had that. But how do you know when you can take a deep breath? I mean, if you're not used to breathing deeply, how do you know that the breath is deep or shallow?
Well, you can test yourself, of course. Um, you can the full breath. Now, yogis call it a full yogic breath, but I think it should just be called a full breath. It really consists of three parts. You should be breathing so that when you inhale, the diaphragm, the muscle that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity, right? It's right under your ribs. So that should move down, and that creates a vacuum in the chest cavity. So you breathe in, and then the abdomen should expand slightly. So that's the bottom breath. Then, of course, there's the middle breath, which is the ribs should expand as you breathe in. And then the upper lung should expand, which is the part we're all good at. Right? Most people, most modern people, tend to breathe with the top third of their lungs. See, it's an essential ingredient, essential nutrient that you can't live without, but yet you don't worry about it. But yet, what if you got a third of the amount of protein or a third of the amount of vitamin C? Those are things you worry about, but you don't actually need them minute by minute. And if you got a third of the amount you needed, you wouldn't die. I mean, you wouldn't be very healthy, but yet you worry about it. But there's this essential ingredient that you don't need. You know, if you're not breathing properly, if all the cells in your body aren't getting enough oxygen, you can be spending a lot of money on organic, biodynamically grown, expensive food, but yet you're not processing it because you're not taking in oxygen. So it's very important.
I think it sounds like there's a wisdom here that we have kind of forgotten, that we don't care about today.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say anything about that? Is that true, or is this? I mean, this cannot be new knowledge.
Mm-hmm. No, of course, this is, you can say, eternal knowledge,
Yeah.
right? It's something that people always knew. But nowadays, I would say there's only one group of people who always breathe properly. Not yogis, but babies.
Yeah.
We were all born knowing how to breathe properly. A healthy baby always breathes properly. But then, we go to school, we get socialized, we want to look good, so we pull our abdomens in, and then we forget and we get tense and we forget how to breathe properly. And we actually become less healthy because of this, physically and emotionally, mentally.
But it's actually quite. I get a bit sad to hear this because we are formed by society in so many ways, and we normally speak about society forming us, our thoughts, our belief system, how we interact with people, what we think other people's think about us, and so on. But that society also forms and restricts our breath. That's scary.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Yeah, but we can change that
Yes.
without looking bad in society. I think you can train yourself to breathe properly. It just takes a little bit of effort. Yeah.
And that's what The Power of Breath, the book, is about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it starts off by giving yourself ways to analyze your breath. And then once you've analyzed and you find out the weaknesses, how can you change it?
And you talk about the 5 functions of prana.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, prana has 5 different jobs.
What are the 5 different jobs of prana?
Um, well, we break it down into taking in energy, right? Like we need energy to breathe in, we need energy to eat food, we need energy to take in ideas, and we call this prana, or sometimes they call it pranavayu. It's the first part of, in India they like to take a category and then divide it into 5 parts or different parts, but then the first part of the whole has the same name. So sometimes it's a little confusing for Westerners.
Yeah. But it's not confusing in the book because you're very clear.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So once we've taken in energy, like say you breathe in, you need to process it because you breathe in air. But actually, the only part of air we actually use is the oxygen. It's only 21% of the air. So we have to process it. In our lungs, we take in the oxygen, right? And then once we've processed it, it has to be transported to the cells. Right? So this is the third job of prana. Right? It causes your blood to circulate, right? To bring the oxygen to the cells of the body. And then the cells metabolize the food. Metabolism is basically burning, right? We burn the nutrients. To burn anything, you need oxygen, right? And whenever you burn anything, there are always you get 2 things. You get the energy and you get the waste product. See, like, say you burned a piece of wood, you get heat, which is the energy, and you get the ash, which is the waste product. So the same thing with the nutrients that we burn. Then the energy, to use that energy to express yourself, right? This is the 4th job of prana.
Yeah.
And then to get rid of the waste products, that's the 5th. Right? So it has 5 jobs. Right? Taking in and also throwing out, right? Taking in energy, throwing out waste products, processing what we take in, getting what we take in, the nutrients, to where it's needed in the body, and then the energy to express ourselves.
It's quite some anatomy about breath.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Which is logic. I mean, thinking about what it does to us, it's the life force, vital force.
Right.
So knowing this, I mean, just by speaking to you, all of a sudden I have a totally new perspective on breath. So knowing this, what can I do like in everyday? I mean, the book is full of exercises. I mean, you can mention a couple of a little bit about how the book is built, because you go into different areas and what you can do with breath to actually have a more healthy lifestyle.
Right. Well, the book is organized by the 5 jobs of prana, and each one has its own exercises to help it. But I think the first thing people should do is to analyze their breath.
Mm-hmm.
See, for example, do you breathe through your nose or your mouth? Right? So you can test yourself to make sure you're breathing through your nose. Your nose is designed for breathing. Okay, unless you're running or doing something very strenuously, you should be breathing completely through your nose. Okay, that way the air is filtered. And this is something right now I think everyone is concerned with. Not only are the normal pollutants in the air and everyone's cold, but there are also viruses in the air. Right? So if you're breathing through your nose, there's a chance of it being filtered out. If you breathe through your mouth, even if you're wearing a mask, it still goes whatever you breathe in goes right into the lungs. Right? Viruses are quite small and they can go through a mask. So you've got more chance of getting rid of the virus or not taking it right into your body if you breathe through your nose. Right? The nose filters the air, it brings it to body temperature. See, like today here in London, I think it's about 12 degrees, but yet body temperature, I think, is 36 degrees. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
See, even on a nice spring day, it's still not the same temperature as your body. So if you're breathing in cold air, you're going to get a chill in your lungs. That's what happens when you breathe through your mouth. Okay. Also, the nose moisturizes the air. If you're breathing through your mouth, you're going to dry the mucous membranes. You're going to be having sore throats and catching cold all the time. Right? It lowers your immune system when you breathe through your mouth. So it's very important to breathe through your nose. Right? So I think the first thing is just to test that. Make sure you're breathing through your nose, and then make sure you're breathing completely with all parts of the lungs.
All the time, or when you sit and do exercise?
You should be breathing fully all day. There's a very interesting book. Actually, it was a bestseller. It's just called Breathe, and he talks about all the problems that mouth breathers have.
Oh,
Yeah, if you
interesting.
breathe through your mouth, you're going to be sick a lot more. Definitely. You should breathe through your nose, unless you're running, of course.
Talking about that, so you should not breathe through your nose when you're running.
Well, you're breathing through your nose and your mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't be taking in enough air when you're running to, through your nose. So then, of course, you have to open your mouth. And I think the only other time you should breathe through your mouth, obviously, when you have a cold, your nose is blocked up, then you have no choice. But under normal conditions, you should be breathing through your nose.
So talking about this, the virus part and all and everything, you told me before the recording here, we talked a little bit about breathing today, and that it's quite a timely time right now to launch this book in Swedish.
Uh-huh.
What did you say?
Yeah, because of course, people who have had COVID virus, they're having trouble breathing, learning how to breathe properly again. So breathing is it's sort of an in topic right now.
Mhm.
And you can use breathing exercises to help you to recover from it. And there are actually a lot of new breathing techniques that a lot of new breathing techniques that have been developed just in the past year
Mhm.
to help people to recover from the effects of the virus.
So so first of all, we can prevent viruses and infections by breathing through our nose.
Well,
And
we don't know if we can prevent it completely, but it will help to filter them out,
yes.
lessen the chance of getting it.
And we can also help us recover from colds, COVID, and other sorts of viruses if we get sick and we want to improve our health. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of breathing exercises do you do on a regular basis, maybe daily?
Well, I do a cleansing breath called Kapalabhati, and I do alternate nostril breathing, which helps to balance the body. And it also, I do it before I sit for meditation because I have a regular meditation practice. So if you practice meditation, right, you want to bring the mind to a very balanced state. So if you do breathing exercises before, it really helps. So these two exercises I do on a regular basis. And I think these are the two that all beginners should practice.
Can we do one or maybe both of them just to have to show?
No, I mean, I think I can show you, but, or I could teach you
Yeah.
one of them,
Yeah.
right, which is the Kapalabhati.
Okay.
Okay, so if you just sit up straight and put your hand, one hand, just put it on your navel, and take your other hand and hold it up. Just lift your thumb and hold your thumb maybe 6 or 8 centimeters in front of your mouth. Okay, so I think you've got to go a little closer. Okay, so imagine that this your thumb is a candle flame, and you want to very quickly blow out the flame. So just do that. Yeah. So do you notice what you just did with your abdomen?
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine the flame keeps lighting. So we want to keep blowing it out, but we're going to do it through the nose. So you're keeping your mouth closed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is Kapalabhati.
So it warms your body up, and you have to exercise with your stomach. You kind of almost pump it, right? That's what I feel.
No, not almost. You do pump.
Yeah. Okay. So you pump it.
Yeah. And you exhale. Focus on the exhalation. All yoga breathing exercises, you focus on the exhalation. And then you relax. Don't worry about the inhalation, but relax. When you relax, the air will come into your lungs. Right? Like if you were blowing out a series of candles, you go, right? Now you're just doing the same thing, but through your nose.
And what is this good for?
Well, it's a cleansing breath.
Yeah.
It helps to cleanse your entire respiratory system. So I do it every day.
And how many times do you breathe like that? And do you take like breath, pauses?
Well, for a beginner, I would say you do about 20 pumpings.
Yeah.
And you would do, I mean, and we call this one series, and you can do it like 3 times.
Oh. So 20 times 3.
Yeah. And then if you like, you can gradually increase it.
Yeah.
You see, so I've been doing it for many years. So when I practice it, I might do it 100, 150, 200 times. Right? But I think for a beginner, you would do 20, and then maybe if you practice next week, you might do 25. You would increase it gradually. I know people always like to be extreme.
Of course.
But it's better, there's no reason to do it.
Another part of the book that you talk about, where you actually talk about symptoms and health challenges in our everyday life, and kind of, what do you say, breathing recipes or breathing practices that you can do to help yourself heal from that. So what kind of health challenges can you actually help with breathing techniques?
Well, of course, breathing problems. Like if someone has asthma, you wouldn't do any breathing techniques when you're actually having an asthmatic attack. But if you did it when you're not having attacks, you could strengthen your system so that you would probably have the attacks less. Right? People who have asthma or breathing problems tend to also have skin problems.
Oh.
Because you're not getting the toxins out of your body properly by the breathing, So they tend to often, I think in everyday language, you'd say bubble up under the skin. So if you have breathing problems, even like acne or eczema, psoriasis, it would be very good to do breathing exercises.
Mm.
If you get rashes a lot,
Mm.
if you have allergies,
Mm.
it's very good to do breathing problems. I know a lot of times when people ask me, you know, I've got this skin problem, I've got this itch all the time, and they always think I'm going to tell them to do, you know, get some cream or something. Um, but I usually suggest they try breathing exercises because if you cleanse your body and you strengthen your respiratory system and you breathe properly, you'll find that that will start to go away. And of course, it doesn't mean that as soon as you do a breathing exercise, magically your skin problems are going to go over. But if you do it on a regular basis, you'll find that gradually it's starting to lessen.
Yeah.
You see, yoga isn't like taking a tablet. If you take a tablet, it works right away, and then the effect goes away. You have to
It's a
take it.
lifestyle.
Yeah. But if you do practice yoga, it takes longer to take effect, but then the effect lasts longer.
Yeah, it's very true.
Hmm.
And maybe you have to give it a try, like give it a few. Well, it actually took me a year of practicing yoga before I really liked it.
Uh-huh.
I stood out with yoga for a year and then I couldn't get rid of it.
Hmm.
It was part of my life. Mm. What about you? How long did you practice yoga before you realized this is my thing?
Um, well, I actually liked it to begin with.
Yeah.
I was very sick as a child. I had polio,
Oh.
and I think I was about 4 years old, and I was paralyzed. And the doctors told my parents I'd never be able to walk again. And it took me about a year to start walking. And my mother used to say the reason I could walk was I was too young to understand the doctors, right? So I just kept trying. But all through my childhood, because I still had problems, my balance was bad. And um, so I never did any kind of sports as a child because my parents were always worried I'd hurt myself. But then when I got older and I went to university and we had to take a year of gym, my mother couldn't write a note anymore to get me out of it. And I found that if I did physical exercise, I felt so much better. And then when I finished university and I was just looking in the newspapers for some kind of exercise to do. And I saw this ad for yoga class. And I really had no idea what it was. But I was living in Florida at the time, where the weather is quite nice. And they gave yoga classes in the park. So I thought, okay, it'll be nice to do some exercise in the park. So I went and I joined the class, and I just found it made me feel so much better. So I think I enjoyed it from the beginning.
Yeah. I did Ashtanga yoga, and it was a kind of a lot of pressure, a lot of physical. I actually don't do that anymore. I do other kinds of yoga and breathing techniques.
Right, right. Well, I started with Shivananda yoga, which is a very relaxed form of yoga. And you mentioned in Stockholm, Frederick Burnett, he
Yes.
teaches that form of yoga.
Yeah. Yes.
So he's actually invited me. I think I mentioned to you, he's invited me several times to Stockholm to do workshops, right? In this style of Shivananda yoga, where you hold the poses. You never jump from one thing to another. You hold and you breathe into it. And they focus a lot on the breathing and also on the pranayama, the breathing exercises, which is how I originally got into pranayama.
So, but coming back a little bit to the health challenges that you can actually help yourself with through breathing techniques. We also talk about migraine, right? Headaches and stress. What else?
Digestive problems.
Yeah.
Because a lot of digestive problems are the result of stress.
Yeah.
See, so if you breathe properly and reduce the stress, you can get rid of a lot of digestive problems. Also, things like arthritis, which is a buildup of calcium around the joints.
Yeah.
If you can breathe properly and, of course, drink a lot of water, you can lessen the effects. I'm not saying you can cure it with breathing exercises, but you can feel more comfortable and be able to be more mobile, even if you have arthritis.
That's a big thing for people. Lots of people have arthritis.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say any kind of chronic condition
Yeah.
can be helped with breathing exercises.
I'm very inspired to start working with this book. So, Swami, is it Swami or Swami?
Swami.
Tell us just shortly, where does this name come from? It's a beautiful name and it's very special.
Yeah, Swami is actually a title,
Mhm.
and it's similar in some ways to being a monk or a nun in the West.
Yeah.
See, so I have the title of being a Swami. I've taken certain vows. My name is actually Sharda.
Sharda.
Yeah. And all Swamis end their name in Ananda. So Ananda means bliss, joy, right? And Sharda, the name Sharda, is another name for Saraswati, who's a Hindu goddess of wisdom, learning, music, art. So I really like the name.
Mhm.
So my teacher gave me the name.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's beautiful.
Hmm.
Who was your teacher?
My teacher was Swami Vishnu Devananda, who founded the Shivananda Yoga Centers.
And you picked that up and you continued to teach the Shivananda Yoga.
Yes, but I stopped working. I worked with him for about 26 years, and then I stopped working with them about 20 years ago, and now I call myself a freelance yogi. So of course my grounding is in their technique,
Yeah.
but I've continued to, I think, learn and evolve in my teaching. I'm going
But
to,
did you really stop or did you just evolve with that?
well, I stopped working with them,
Oh,
with
okay.
the Shivananda organization,
Yeah.
but yet my teaching is based on that teaching,
Oh,
but yet my teaching has evolved.
yes, of course. So, Swami, is there anything you'd like to say to your Swedish audience?
Um, just that it's very interesting to hear about different aspects of yoga or read about yoga, but I think the important thing is to practice.
Yeah.
Right?
And in this example, it's about breath.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and not just to go to a class once a week. I think if you really want to get into it and to get the optimum benefit, I think it's important to do a bit every day. I think it's better to do, 15, 20 minutes every day than to do 3 hours once a week or five. Some people go to workshops once a week and they do intensive practice, maybe 5 hours, and that's it for the week.
What would you put in your 15 minutes? If you had 15 minutes, what would you put in that? I mean, for you, it's one thing because you've done this for 20 or 40 years or whatever. But for the people who listen to you now and they say, okay, but 15 minutes, I can do that. What should you put into those 15 minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah, I would do Kapalabhati. I think it's very important. I would do a few rounds of the alternate nostril breathing, and I would do the sun salutation. If I only had 15 minutes, I would do those three things.
So it's 2 breathing techniques and 1 yoga asana session. Sun salutations. A and B or just A?
Well, I do the Shivananda, which has only one sun salutation, not A and B.
And we can find this in the book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Good. Swami, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me today.
Yeah, pleasure.
And I hope to see you again soon.
Okay.
Be well and good luck with the launch of your very new book.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.